night footage of tankers in the Gulf. A missile lights the horizon. Oil prices spike. 1,000,000 miles away, in Manila, a mother unlocks her phone and whispers, "Can we still afford school this year?" If you stay with me for the next 30 minutes, you'll understand exactly how that question forms and how to prepare before the next shock hits. Because this isn't just about geopolitics, it's about kitchen tables. Most people watch global conflict like distant theater, but here's where it gets interesting. Every oil shock writes itself into someone's grocery list. In early March 2026, escalating conflict involving Iran briefly disrupted key shipping lanes. The Strait of Hormuz, a corridor that carries roughly 1/5 of the world's oil, tightened. Shipping insurance surged, risk premiums ballooned, and global markets reacted within minutes. This next part sounds obvious, but almost nobody pauses to see the chain. Oil isn't just fuel, it's transport cost, it's fertilizer, it's shipping, it's investor psychology. When the Gulf trembles, economies far away hold their breath. Analysts warned prices could surge past $100, even $120 per barrel. Some emergency models projected higher if exports froze. And here's the part most viewers miss. Markets don't wait for certainty, they price in fear. Within hours, oil futures flashed red. Speculation amplified volatility. But here's where ego inversion enters. Experts predicted a temporary spike. Instead, supply anxiety lingered longer than expected. Markets were wrong twice. The Philippines imports the majority of its refined fuels. When crude climbs, pump prices follow. Transport operators adjust fares. Food distribution costs increase. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas watches inflation bands closely. But here's the invisible mechanism. Inflation expectations can rise before actual prices do, and expectation alone changes spending behavior. That's how shock travels faster than ships. Cut to Anna. She owns a small sari-sari store. When diesel rises, my supplier adds delivery fees. My customers buy less. Her face doesn't show panic, it shows calculation. Here's your first practical takeaway. Track transport-sensitive goods first. Rice, cooking oil, delivery-based items. Micro-adjustments now prevent crisis later. Remittances hit record highs in 2025. Over $40 billion flowed into Filipino households. That buffer matters. But here's where it gets complicated. The Middle East hosts over 1 million Filipino workers. Construction, healthcare, domestic service. A temporary hiring pause changes remittance inflows within months. This next part sounds obvious, but almost nobody does it. Families dependent on overseas income rarely build 6-month fuel-adjusted buffers because shocks feel abstract until they aren't. Imagine tuition due in June, oil spikes in March, a Gulf hiring freeze in April. That's how quickly policy ripples to the kitchen table. Anna writes numbers in red ink. She circles diesel. Here's your second takeaway. Households should track 3 sensitivity points: fuel, remittance flow, and currency movement. Most people miss this, but preparedness begins with awareness. Risk aversion pushes investors towards safe assets. Emerging market currencies weaken. The peso softens. Imports cost more. Government subsidy bills increase. Triple squeeze: energy, currency, sentiment. This is how macroeconomics feels personal. Trade with Iran is limited in direct value. The shock isn't bilateral, it's systemic. Energy, shipping, insurance, investor psychology. This next part sounds obvious, but almost nobody internalizes it. The indirect channel is often stronger than direct trade. Enter Dr. Mateo Cruz, macroeconomist. He walks into a glass office overlooking Manila. Oil shocks transmit quickly, he explains, but policy tools exist. Authority matters, but vulnerability matters too. Even central banks don't control oil.
they manage consequences. How quickly does inflation react? Within weeks, expectations move first. What tools exist? Interest rate adjustments, targeted subsidies, currency stabilization. Can remittances offset prolonged shock? Yes, if they remain stable. But here's where ego inversion returns. Markets assumed rapid stabilization. Policy response lagged by weeks, and that gap matters. Oil versus inflation bands, peso versus Brent crude. Numbers tell stories before headlines do. Watch patterns, not noise. That's your third takeaway. Meet the Reyes family. Father works in the Gulf. Remittances pay rent, tuition, medicine. This isn't abstract policy, it's dinner. If hiring pauses, we delay repairs. If evacuation happens, we start over. If prices rise, we cut spending. Small reshuffles multiplied by millions become macro slowdown. That's the multiplier effect. Community market foot traffic thins, spending slows, confidence softens. Shock doesn't explode, it spreads quietly. Targeted transfers, strategic reserves, temporary tariff adjustments, currency stabilization. Each solution has trade-offs. Most people demand certainty, but policymakers manage probabilities. 3 numbers: Brent crude, BSP inflation updates, remittance inflows. Track them monthly. If oil stays elevated and remittances falter, pressure deepens. If stabilization returns, recovery accelerates. Prepared citizens outperform panicked ones. Back at Anna's store, she pins a small note. When prices fall, we breathe. Global events feel distant until they don't. And here's the final inversion. The missile wasn't the story, the recalculation was. Next time you see oil headlines, don't scroll, decode. Watch the 3 numbers, adjust early. And in the next episode, we'll show you the household resilience framework, step by step. Comment workbook if you want it released first, because global shock is inevitable, but unpreparedness is optional.